Okay then. So, what do we have happening this week? I don't even remember what the programme's called we're talking about now. Coronation Street. Gemma, let me tell you, we had 7 fine stories to chat about this week. Starting off with Amy's story, the explicit consent warning. I haven't got any new storyline titles this week, Gemma, I warn you. So be prepared for more repeats, like the Hodge Hog. And is she going to be hogging him all to herself? I guess it's looking like that way. Maybe, I don't really know. We had a bit more of the Max storyline with his Max sentence. There's a slight bit of acid rain forecast for the beginning of the week, and we had the Gematrimony and Poor Paulie Paul stories as well. A tiny bit of the Lies and Eliza storyline. And this week we saw the introduction of Isabella. So it was the Dimbo Italiano story that we're going to finish off with. Any preference, Gemma? I'd quite like to have a try of the Hodge Hog story myself. So I'm going to pass over to you for Amy's explicit consent warning. What happened this week?
On Monday, Summer asks Bernie about jobs because she wants to earn money for the family.
Oh yeah, Bernie, this is when she was saying that she used to work at the pound outlet at the precinct, didn't she?
Yeah, they need shelf stackers, apparently. Amy asks Summer to stalk Mia's socials because she needs to know what Aaron is really like. Now, Mia is Aaron's ex-girlfriend.
Well, current girlfriend now, isn't she?
Now they're going out with each other. And didn't she try to warn her? I can't remember.
Yeah, Amy tried to warn Mia last week and then got blocked.
So Amy sees Mia at the garage and tries to talk to her, but Mia's not interested and says, "You just want to talk to me because Summer's jealous." And Amy says, "No, this is about Aaron. He's not as nice as you think he is." And Mia says, No. Aaron's been amazing. He's great.
So handsome.
And Amy says, "No, he did something terrible. I don't want it to happen to you." And she doesn't believe her at all. She's like, whatever. And then Amy blurts out, "He raped me." And Mia stops in her tracks, and Abby's there because this is the garage, and she's just staring. And Mia doesn't believe her. Abby's like, I can't. I don't know what to think here. This is mind-boggling. Mia walks off, and Amy sort of rounds on Abby and has a go at her, and she says, "Look, I can't get my head around this. Why did you say he did it, and then to go back on it? That's why I didn't believe you." And Amy says, "It doesn't matter. I need to tell the truth now. I don't want anyone else to go through what I have." So Steve is speaking to Daisy about Amy and how he's been struggling to reach her. And obviously Daisy's feeling quite sympathetic. They all live together in a house. Don't forget. Amy tells Summer that she's told Mia what's happened and wishes she could have tried harder to get through to her. So Summer's like, "Oh, you did your best." So Mia comes back to the garage and she starts to grill Aaron about what Amy's told her. And he says, yeah, she accused me and the police don't believe her. And he says, he says, "Oh, look," she says, "I wish you'd told me, but I do believe you that you didn't do it." She says, "You're one of the good ones," and she wants to help him. So then we see Swain going to number 1 to tell Amy that a serious accusation has been made against her, that she's been accused of harassment. So it's all been turned back on her, isn't it? What?
Nothing. It sounds a bit like we're making it up as we go along. This really happened.
Yeah, I know.
We just can't remember it very well.
No, I do remember this happening. I just kind of get confused about when it happened.
Monday.
Don't laugh at me.
I'm not laughing at you.
Amy goes to see Aaron and he says, I didn't know that Mia would report you to the police. Amy's fuming and she calls him a rapist again. So she goes back home, can't get through to him. So Amy returns home and sort of to have a moment of catharsis, she starts to write down what's happened to her. Like it's a story, and someone says, "Yeah, you should do this. It's good for you to get it out. It's like a sort of therapy." So Abby comes to talk to her, and Tracy doesn't really want to let her in, but they do anyway. So they all sit together at the table, and Abby says, "Look, Aaron really might not realise that he did anything wrong." And Amy says, No, I'm not going to accept that. I've seen that on Twitter. I've seen people saying this in forums. He had sex with me. I was passed out. I was blind drunk. I was asleep. It's not like we were both drunk and I regret it. Or I didn't say yes, I wasn't constantly saying, yeah, brilliant. Like how you do.
Is that what you do, is it?
I don't know. You
Yeah,
tell me.
brilliant.
She was passed out, so she couldn't
Disgusting.
consent. And Abby says, I don't understand why you're backtracking on all this. And Amy says, this is actually what happened. I cannot stand the fact that people think I'm just some slag who got blind, drunk, and cried rape. So Abby believes her and says, look, I'm really sorry that I added to all of your dramas. And Tracy says, okay, I'll accept your apology, but only if Amy does. So Abby says, I wanted to believe Aaron because I put up with a lot myself. And, you know, when I look back on it now, the things that I have put up with weren't okay either. So maybe this is a tiny shout out to the women that I've seen on Twitter defending Aaron and saying that things like that happen all the time and that happened to them, so it's not that bad. And I felt like that could have been spelled out a bit more, but I don't know whether anyone at Corrie, I don't know, did they really anticipate the number of people that seem to be willfully misunderstanding what's happened in this storyline? I don't know. So Abby's willing to take her story.
I felt that during this, Abby came round to believe Amy maybe a little bit too easily. Like she was, vehemently defending Aaron for weeks. And then, it just didn't seem to take very much to get her completely flip-flopping.
No, I don't know.
I'm glad she has gone onto Amy's side.
She has been given Aaron sort of glances. I wish she had fought a bit harder on his side, because I feel as though she did back down a bit more, but I think they're trying to preserve her character.
Yeah, I just would have, I felt like there should have been more like, oh, at last you believe me, this is wonderful, and I didn't get that feeling.
No, Amy hasn't won anything but the fact that Abby believes her.
It's just being able to convince someone, though. I don't know. I felt like it should have.
She's not trying to win an argument.
No, I guess.
So Abby's disgusted that Amy thought she had to back down, and she's like, "What kind of world do we live in?" Steve finds Amy typing away on a story later, and he says, "I wish I could help you." They both agree that she should put it online when she's finished writing this, because it is true. So Aaron and Mia having a drink around the back of the pub, drinking out of bottles. Am I wrong here? Is this the first time we've seen Newton and Ridley bottles of beer?
I don't know, maybe.
So they're...
I enjoyed the little pan that went from the back of the Rovers over to number one. Yeah. Nice little crane shot or whatever it was there.
So they're drinking, and he says, "Look, I've had it now." I've spoken to Amy. She was mad, but it's all sorted out, and I don't think anyone's gonna think that I did it anymore. So, like you said, the camera pans back over to the yard of number one, and Amy's agonising over whether to post this account on everyone's favourite social media site, Friend Connect, where it may very well go viral instantly.
We didn't get any talk about it going viral.
But it went viral enough, Michael.
It's the first time that anyone's done anything that it hasn't immediately gone viral.
It did. It was featured in a podcast.
Femborium.
Femboring.
Our bitter rivals.
I know. I can't believe that they got Femborium to do this. I'm mad about it, because we could have done that. Yeah,
I know we could. We should have got in there. Yeah, everything happened a bit quick. People were complaining about this week. So, within hours of Amy posting this, it gets featured on a podcast, and then the podcast gets made to take the episode down. And then the papers are being delivered from Aaron's lawyers to the McDonald's.
Well, yeah, they did a bit of condensing. I feel as though there are other stories that needed to be condensed more. Like, maybe Faye and Craig.
I don't think there has been too much Faye and Craig, to be honest.
No,
but
I feel
like there was.
They dragged that out, and this is too fast. I also would have really liked to have listened to this Femporium podcast.
It sounds right up your street, to be honest.
I think it's definitely
a load of women moaning about men is probably what the podcast...
How do you know they're moaning about men? How do you know they're moaning about men just because it's feminist?
Well, it's just my...
Just because men are rubbish?
Yeah.
Do you think...
I know what you think of us.
You're damning yourself there, aren't you? So she posted the account after having a few flashbacks about Abby and Steve, and I wanted to gouge my ears out at that point. She posts it. So on Wednesday she's having a bit of a mixed reaction, and she's there glued to the responses, and everyone's going, "Don't look at them, they'll just annoy you." And it's like me on Twitter when people don't get my jokes, or they try to explain my jokes back to me, and I'm getting so annoyed. Summer and Daisy supporting her, and they're like, "Yes, this will shame Aaron." Then Leanne comes striding in, doesn't she, to the garage, moaning to Tyrone and Abby about this Amy's post, going, "Why is Aaron still working here? He's a rapist." And they said, "Well, we can't fire him. The police say he didn't do anything." And then Aaron turns up and they say, "Look, we can't have you working here at the moment." And he says, "I've got rights. I haven't done anything wrong." And Tyrone says, "I've known Amy since she was a kid. She's not a liar. You can't, you got to go home. You can't stay here." So at the cab office, Steve and Tim are talking, and Steve is saying to, "I feel useless about the Amy situation." And Tim's like, "Well, that's just normal. Don't you always feel useless? Because I do. Because I am." That's not what he really says.
Can I give credit where credit's due and props and everything to Steve this week? He's not been an idiot this week. He's been, refreshingly taking it seriously. Is this the storyline that it takes to make Stephen not be a mega buffoon?
I don't really like the way this week that it feels as though Steve and Tracy are like, "We'll put our life on the line for our daughter's right to do a blog post that gets featured in a feminist podcast about this man." Like, really? So you're going to throw away everything, like including Amy's future?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm glad that Steve hasn't been stupid, but in the usual way. But I don't feel like I'm watching Steve and Tracy, I feel like I should be going, yeah, that's right. You fight for your daughter. But what I'm really thinking when I see them is, "Oh, you're kind of fighting a losing battle here. What are you doing?"
It doesn't feel like a good play, does it?
No.
It feels like, I think you've done it. I think you've made your point.
And it's the whole kind of ties in with Tracy not being quite as evil as she used to be. It's I think if this had happened to Amy, if with the old Tracy, let's say 10 years ago Tracy as her mum, there might be a little bit more passion and fire and
I know it does. It's a bit of a sad indictment about how
underhand tactics,
how middle-aged and boring the McDonald's have both become, because both Steve and Tracy in their heyday would have really messed Aaron up.
They would.
They really would have done, and woe betide him if Grandad McDonald ever turns up.
There's all the wind seems to have gone out of Tracy's sails.
Liz would have taken off her necklace and like thrown it through the air like a frisbee, like a spiky frisbee, and skewered it.
Would have been like Ninja Death Stars, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as it is, they're just moping about and selling the florist shop. Anyway, Tim says things will get better. Faye went through a rough patch.
That time that she bonked Adam on the head and
everyone accused her of doing things she did do. I don't know what that was about. Anyway, Eric and Aaron meet up in the precinct. Eric is Aaron's dad, remember? And Aaron's telling him he's quit his job, and Eric says, "You know what? Somebody told me about this post that Amy's done." And he says, "Yeah, Dad, that's why I quit my job." And Eric says, "We need to take this down. Is any of it true?" And Aaron says, "Well, we did sleep with each other, but that's it." And Eric says, "She's going to regret posting that about my son." Because don't forget, recently Eric's had the pleasure of his mum dying. So he's loaded.
He's rolling in it now. What's he going to... Yeah.
They really didn't know.
How handy.
A single tear drop on the ground, did they, those two, about this poor woman?
I know they're dancing on poor Granny Sanford's grave, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are. Back at home, Steve tells Amy that she should be proud of herself, but you don't need to read all the comments. If only it was that easy. Eric comes around to the door and says, "Who's this woman who's been saying horrible things about my son? I'm going to have a go at you. I've been speaking to a solicitor. We're going to sue you for libel if you don't take it down." So later on, Amy does get this letter from the solicitor, and it says, "Take down the post or you're going to get sued." And Amy's like, "No, I'm not going to." And Steve says, "That's right, you don't do it. When the court rules in our favour, it'll prove that you're right." So Tracy and Steve they try to talk to Adam, but he's not around, so they talk to Dee Dee instead, and she says, "Oh, I don't know about this. If you lose this, you could pay hundreds of thousands of pounds." And the script writers wrote down a little disclaimer for Dee Dee, and she just kept reading it out all week. Just so
from this point onwards.
If you lose this court case, it could cost you lots and lots of money and your home and all your businesses. And at the end of the day, it is Aaron's word against Amy. It's 50-50. I think you really think you should take down the post. And Tracy's like, no way, we're going to fight it. And Tracy's like, look, if I can staple things to lampposts, then why can't she put something on the internet? They get back home and Steve's like, maybe we should take it down. They have a little argument. And then Tracy says, oh, well, you weren't saying this about money when it was Oliver that you were worried about. You were willing to sell streetcars and the flat for him. Why don't you want to do the same thing for Amy? And immediately she realises she's overstepped the mark. And Steve's like, how could you? How could you? And he walks out really sadly. And Tracy's there going, oh, no, I've done the worst thing I could ever do. Hurt his feelings. You know, of all the things that Tracy's ever felt guilty for in her life. So he goes and talks to Leanne. And, you know, that she's sympathetic about Tracy, actually, and says, I agree it's not the same as what happened with Ollie, but Tracy just wants to protect her daughter. And that's priceless. And it was actually, I like that scene. Tracy, Leanne and Steve talking to each other. You don't get that very often anymore, but it was nice.
Not since Ollie's died.
No, I know, but it was, it was nice that they were...
Yeah,
I don't know.
They're civil to each other.
Yeah. In Victoria Gardens, Aaron sees that Summer and Amy are there. This is when Summer's like, you're in a podcast. I just love this. Just imagine like how stressful it must be to work on Femporium. How what a knife edge you live on constantly. You're just trawling the forums looking for dirt on people so you can post immediately.
Well, yeah, I want to know, like, were they like, do they post every Wednesday? It's like, oh, we haven't got anything to talk about in today's podcast. Oh, thank goodness for this post that we found. Or is it just like a little mini news segment about how have men been assholes this week? Brilliant.
Michael, you're being a bit of a men's rights activist.
Well, I do have another podcast, Manporium.
Yeah, Manporium. The fact that you immediately think a feminist podcast is about bashing men says more about your idea of what men and women are like.
Well, what can I say?
You're just a big Neanderthal. I remember now, I wanted to start this podcast pretending to be on Femporium.
Oh, too late.
Hi, my name's...
With half an hour into it.
My name's Nikki, and this is my co-host, Michelle. And today we're talking about the rapist of Weatherfield, Aaron. There's a post we found online for this girl. Feel free to say whatever you like, Michelle.
I just can't improv the same way as you can, Gemma. Aren't men gits?
Aren't men the worst?
Yes. Anyway.
You're taking this personally.
I'm not.
Honestly, it's really gross that you're taking it personally, that there's even a feminist... You know what? Men, stop acting like arseholes and we won't need feminist podcasts, will we? Talking about rapists. And the thing is about it, in this situation, they're not even in the wrong, because he was a rapist and she just writing about her experiences.
Fine. You're right. Good for you, Femporium. They're not even real. What else happened? I've lost even where we are now. They're at the Victoria Gardens, aren't they?
So yeah, Aaron speaking to Summer and Amy, and they're like, bog off. And he says, you got me sacked. And they say, we don't care. And he says, I've been getting loads of comments about this, so take the post down. We can't move on as long as it's still up there. And because I've been seeing what people have been saying about you as well. So she's like, no. Steve comes home and Tracy apologises for what she says, and he says, look, it's okay. It's not life and death, but we can still fight. Amy comes down and says, this has gone too far. I've made my point. I'm going to take this post down. Dee Dee comes round and says, oh, this has got worse, actually, because you took too long to take it down. Now they want you to write a retraction. And Steve says, oh, get bent. So they all have...
She didn't say it to Dee Dee.
They all have a mediation meeting at their lawyer's office. Eric and his lawyer with Tracy and Steve and Dee Dee. And, no, it's Amy and Steve and Dee Dee. And this lawyer's going, you know, this post was mentioned on the prominent Femporium podcast, which has had thousands of downloads.
Show off.
I know. So it's no longer good enough that you just delete it because it's already been
Yeah, the information's out there.
Yeah, exactly. But we've asked them, we've told them to take their podcast down, which they have done, but this information's got too far, and the only way to remedy it is with a retraction. We need to restore Aaron's good name. And Amy says, no way. And Eric says, you vindictive little bitch. I'm going to fight you for all you've got. And then he walks out. On Friday, Dee Dee chats with Steve and Tracy about what they need to fight this in court. She says, just so you know, as a disclaimer, if you lose this court case, it could cost you hundreds of thousands of pounds. And it's not Aaron on trial here. It's, you know, she's going to have to prove, the burden of proof is on her to say that what she's said is true. And she couldn't prove it to make the police convict, so it's doubtful that she can do it in this court case. Maybe she should just write this letter. And Steve's like, no way. And Dee Dee says, you could be facing financial ruin. Bye. And Steve says to Tracy, we're going to have to sell our businesses. And it was really relatable, I thought, watching Steve and Tracy list off.
If only we all had businesses to sell.
Again, this is what I've been saying for ages about how balmy it is to claim that Coronation Street is the voice of the working classes, because they're like, oh, we may have to sell the florist, or maybe my share of streetcars, or perhaps the flat, or maybe the house, or Nana Blanche's stocks and shares, and her £5 million worth of Apple stocks. Anyway, Eric and Aaron are with their lawyer later, and Eric's already put a down payment of 20 grand, and
thanks, Gran.
The lawyer says this might not be plain sailing. It's a 50-50 chance, but you know, it's could go either way. Same thing, same 50-50, isn't it, really? They keep saying things about high court versus criminal versus whatever. They didn't really explain it enough for me to understand anything beyond it's 50-50.
Yeah, there was lots of legal jargon and stuff where I was
High
like,
court,
do I need
whatever.
to understand this? I don't really know. Amy's probably going to win, whatever it is.
The thing is about it is that it's a detriment, really, to understand in too much detail the reality of the situation, because it's Coronation Street, so they bend things to their will, don't they? And Aaron's looking a bit worried, isn't he? Mary speaks to Amy in the cafe and says that the estate agents have been ringing up because they want to value the florist, and Amy's surprised, so she confronts her parents and says, what are you doing? I don't want you to bankrupt yourself because of this stupid post. So she decides to take matters into her own hands to meet up, because this is when she also finds out from Steve that they might have to sell all the businesses.
Yeah.
Again, why are they so dumb? This is their source of income. It's like what happened with Leanne and Nick. Why are you selling a business that you rely on for money?
Good point.
Where are you going to work? You can't all get jobs working down at the tram stop. At the
Pound outlet.
at the precinct. No, hang on. Amy meets up with Aaron in the pub, or is it the cafe? She's like saying, please can you drop this libel case? And she tries to scare him, like saying, you know, you haven't got a hope in hell, you're going to waste all this money, yada, yada, yada. So this gets under Aaron's skin, so he meets in the precinct with his dad and says, we should just quit while we're ahead. What if the judge doesn't believe me? And Eric says, he will do, because it's the truth. And Aaron's like, oh no. About that. No, he just looks quite guilty, doesn't he? Dee Dee comes and tells the McDonald's the case is still in full swing, but if they lose, the financial consequences could be substantial.
Why didn't you tell me this before, Dee Dee?
This is new information, Dee Dee. What do you mean? And they need to prove that Amy was telling the truth. I'd think they just need to find the episode that this happened in and play that.
I don't know how on earth they can prove what Amy's saying is true. And I think it's going to come down to maybe if it comes to trial, and I guess it probably kind of will because they do like a good trial on Coronation Street, Aaron's going to crack because he's just been in denial, hasn't he, about it? I think it's like a case of he kind of knows. At first he didn't. At first he definitely thought, no, I didn't rape you, whatever. But the more that Amy's been saying it, the more she's been describing the night, the more she's saying, I was unconscious, you had sex with me. I think it's just kind of eating away at him. And I can see him completely crumbling in front of the judge. But we've got to remember that it isn't Aaron on trial here. And even if it does turn out that
yeah, but he still has to give evidence, surely.
Yeah.
So he is on trial. The same way that she would be on trial even if it was a court case where he was being found guilty, because the victims always get
But it's
dragged over the
there's not a
coals.
chance, is there? I don't know how these things work. That in this court case, that Aaron's going to end up having to, go to jail, pay a fine, whatever for raping Amy. It'll
Listen.
just be a case of the judge saying, "Well, yeah, I'd
No,
have
I
posted
think-
that if I was Amy too."
I think what happens they haven't explained this yet. They've only just told us that the financial consequences could be substantial. They haven't said, but I assume it would be whoever loses pays the other one's fees.
Yeah, no, I think that's right.
So if Amy wins, then she just doesn't have to pay the bill.
Well, I can't remember how much the Sanfords inherited from Nana Sanford, so I'm sure that they can probably end up paying
Still
for
up
it.
with no
yeah.
money.
Well, and then off he goes.
There are so many lessons that Aaron needs to learn out of this, but I don't think he's going to.
I think he is.
Well,
I think he's
he
starting
needs
to realise.
I think, the idea that he is in danger of following in his father's footsteps regarding alcohol abuse felt more interesting to me. Like him coming to a realisation that, hey, every time I get drunk, bad things happen, and look at my dad. Is this what I want? I don't think so. The idea that he could break the cycle would be really empowering, but it's more drama. I just find it that the McDonald's, the idea that they're willing to risk everything. It's very noble, isn't it? But it's not realistic.
I don't know. It's nice to think that these two would do anything for their daughter.
It's really nice that they would do that, but at the same time, if they're going to sell their businesses, then she could use that for a house deposit.
Yeah, I'm not finding this storyline as gripping as it once was. I'm not exactly sure what it is that's turning me off of it. Maybe it's just the misery of it, and here's something else that's gone wrong, and it's not bad enough that Amy got raped, but every week it just things pile on top of her. Like, now she's having a breakdown on a bus, and now she's being taken to court and being sued for libel, and I know it's a drama, but it's maybe a little bit too dramatic. I don't know. Do you think? What do you think is going to happen? Do you expect it is going to come to court? Or at the end of the day, as well, it seems to be very much that the parents are driving what's happening here. They're kind of taking over, aren't they?
True, actually.
Aaron's not the one that's suing Amy. It's Eric. And
It's
Steve
Eric
and Tracy.
Tracy.
Amy said, "Look, I'm taking the post down. Can we just drop it now?" And Tracy and Steve are the ones that are saying, "No, we're going to fight." So I don't know whether that's going to turn into anything or.
In a way, it's interesting, but equally, these two kids are old enough that their parents. It shouldn't be a proxy war of parents fighting each other.
I found the story more interesting when it was the younger cast members, the younger characters that are doing it, like Ardy, his bit of writing on Aaron's head a couple of weeks ago, that was great, but having the parents battle against it, not so exciting.
It's interesting that they've done,
What did you think about the post? Would you have said that Amy was in the right to post that? Would you have done that in her position?
It feels unfair that I can see both sides, because if I was Amy, I desperately want some justice, and just having somebody acknowledge that this did happen to you. You're not crazy, you're not wrong, you're not stupid, you're not a hysterical woman, you were raped. Just being able to tell people that is really empowering, but at the same time, I think it's awful that it is possible to ruin someone's life by saying they did something. And in this situation, he did actually do the thing that she's accusing him of. But but I also equally think that the idea that people are accused of these things and didn't do them is very overblown. There are far more women who have been raped and had no justice than men who have been accused of rape who didn't do it.
I don't blame her at all for posting it, but I'm glad that she's not writing this retraction, because that would really kind of stick in your craw, wouldn't it? Having to write down something and saying, "I'm sorry for saying these things about you," which
I would find
we both
that almost impossible to do.
Yeah.
I think I'd just have to get somebody else to write it for me, pretend I
Get
wrote it.
Chat GPT to do it for you. It's easy
Yeah,
these
because
days.
that would. It's worse, isn't it? Than it's just.
Yeah, it's one thing
It's a
saying,
bad
fine, I'll
situation.
take the post down. I was feeling a bit emotional when I was writing it. I got it out of my system. The
Wow.
damage has been done now
There
anyway.
are plenty of people now who are going to always think of him as a rapist without having, even with having it being retracted.
Mm.
But there are just as many people probably who think she's just a big liar and she was drunk.
Mm.
Even people that saw it happen.
Yeah. What was that thing? I'm pretty sure it was with this storyline, the nomophobia this week. Do you remember what that was about? I've got it written in the notes here, and I cannot remember.
Wasn't it fear of not having your phone on you?
Oh,
No mobile
yes, it
phone.
was. Yes, it was,
phobia.
wasn't it? Nomophobia. Yeah.
I get that sometimes.
Because Amy was there on her phone, wasn't she?
Because I want my step count.
Okay. So I just don't have much to add about this story, and it felt like, it was one of the biggest stories of the week, but
I feel like we've said many times our opinion about this story, and I don't feel like there's a lot more to say about it.
No, it has moved on in a way that, the stakes have been raised, it's possibly going to court and everything, but we all know it's going to be okay. Are the McDonald's going to lose all of their businesses? No, probably not.
Or maybe even if they did it honestly wouldn't
They'll
make
survive.
that much practical difference to me watching it, because I don't really remember that Tracy owns the flat that
I thought Debbie just owned everything on the street at the moment.
We've barely seen any episodes of Tracy in The Florist recently, and Steve in Streetcars,
Yeah, you get
like
the odd scene here and there, don't you?
year.
Yeah, it seems that way. So I'm sure
Maybe
they'll
it's
all be
about
fine.
time they relinquished some of their reign over the street. Give somebody else a go to own something. How much money they getting?
I know.
Honestly, they must be loaded. If they've got a flat, they're renting it out. What they're getting, like 600 a minimum a month out of that.
Yeah.
It's not a great flat. It's not a great position, but it's still got at least 2 bedrooms.
Right, bus stop right outside.
Exactly.
Good
Great
transport links.
The
tram stop around the corner.
They've got the streetcars. God knows how much that's generating, and the florist.
Exactly.
They must be raking
They're
it
coining
in.
it
Thousands a month.
Yeah, they can afford to take the hit.
They're forcing blooming. Who owns that? Who owns number one? Is it Ken?
I think it's Ken.
Ken better be charging everyone rent. If I was Ken, I'd be kicking everyone out. He's got Tracy and
Steve, Daniel and
there.
Daisy.
Yeah, and Amy.
Yeah, somehow.
He must be raking it in too. Everyone, it's just like it's a very nice insular community of cash going around in a great big circle there, Weatherfield, isn't it?
Exactly. Right. So on to the Hodgehog story then. So Faye's going to be taking Miley out for the day on Monday, and then Craig and Jackson because Jackson's going with Faye and Miley, and Craig feels like Faye's slipping away from him, and he kind of gives Jackson a bit of a look. They exchange looks as they're heading out there. And Miley's getting very, very close to her newly found mam, and she's getting upset because eventually she's going to have to go off to Slough. And it's not just that that's upsetting her, it's the fact that her mum's not coming with her. Oh, mam, if only you could come to Slough with us. So they go to have a little ice cream or milkshake or whatever, it's sweet enough. And Miley says, look, come to Slough, it's amazing. Come with us. You saying you love Craig more than me? And Faye says, look, this is very complicated. She's not committing. And one of the things that I was saying in the Street Talk shorts for today, one of the failings with this storyline as a viewer is that I'm not feeling any kind of love or genuine affection or feelings or anything between pretty much anyone involved in it. Like, I'm not feeling that bond between Faye and Miley. Faye and Craig, they've had years for me to grow to like them as a couple, and it just feels completely cold, doesn't it? Because they never showed them on screen. They've been months and months and months without seeing any of Faye and Craig, so I feel nothing about their relationship. Faye and Jackson, again, I'm not feeling it. So I'm not invested in who goes with who or stays with who or whatever. Is it the same for you?
Yeah, I feel if at the end of this story it turned out that Jackson and Craig ran off together, I'd feel that there was just as much chemistry
That's probably
between
the best
them
outcome, to be
as
honest.
there is between anybody else.
So anyway,
Yeah,
so
Craig and Jackson go to Slough, and then Miley and Faye can go somewhere else because I don't want any of them.
no, I don't mind Faye. I don't really mind Faye. I just think that the show's done a real number on her in the past couple of years, lumbering her with Craig, sticking her in prison for 6 months or whatever for bopping Adam on the head. They've just clearly not known what to do with Faye for the longest of times, and now they're giving her this story that's it's just not quite working. And I wouldn't mind if Miley stays for the novelty factor, having a little American kid running around. She's not
American.
that annoying. Canadian,
She's
sorry.
not Canadian. She's raised in Canada.
Okay, whatever. But yeah, so whatever about this. So we get big news from Craig at the end of Monday's episode.
What's happening?
He's got a secondment to CID.
Wow.
And if you rely on this podcast to tell you what's going on in Coronation Street because you're not actually watching it yourself, or maybe you're in Canada and you like to listen to it 2 weeks ahead, we're not joking here. Craig has actually got himself a secondment into CID, the coppers in disguise. This is just, I think across the country, viewers were like, really? When that news was brought up, because there was a thing about it a couple of years ago, wasn't there? That I can't remember, he was talking to Jess or something, that he was going to try CID out, and I can't remember whether it just kind of fell through, kind of, and they brought it up this week, and he says, oh, do you remember that time that I backed out or whatever? But I remember at the time thinking, no, Craig couldn't be a detective. He's a gormless dimwit. And the rest of this week's episodes showed pretty much that, because Faye wasn't doing the best of jobs, hiding the truth from Craig, but he just believed her hook, line and sinker all week.
Do you think that the CID are going to study him?
I don't know.
He thinks he's gone there to sort of help them out, but...
You suggested earlier they just need a T-boy or somebody to do the photocopying or something, and then that wouldn't surprise me. But he's a barely I remember when he got a job as just, a plod, and I was thinking, really, that's an awful lot of responsibility for this guy. And he's not proven himself to be the most effective of coppers. Yes, I know he got really hooked into this
mystery.
I found a crutch at the beginning of last year.
He didn't solve that one either.
I can't remember whether he did or not, did he? I can't remember, but he was really kind of obsessively hooked into that.
Of how to fix somebody's plumbing, but other than that...
Yeah.
I think what should happen, honestly, is that he gets a job working for Ed.
He's just not suited. He's not suited to be a policeman. He's no way suited to be a detective. It's like... And the thing is as well, Weatherfield Police don't need any more detectives. They've got a whole batch of actually fairly quite iconic detective ladies at the moment.
Yeah.
They've got Abney, they've got Swain, they've got McKinnon. We haven't seen her for a very long time.
Yeah,
they've got Fringe mukbangs.
I like the women of
They don't need Craig coming in and cramping their style.
No, they'd eat him alive. Can you imagine him on the first day of the job? They'd be sending him off to get tartan paint.
I know that they often interview the wrong people or they arrest the wrong person, but at least they're fairly believable. Yeah. I was like, yeah, you could be a detective. Yeah. You're a hard-nosed...
If you took...
I take no victims.
What? I take no victims?
What's the phrase? Don't take no prisoners kind of attitude.
No, they do take prisoners.
Okay,
I take prisoners.
I take prisoners and I grill them. I get that. I believe that they could be detectives. But Craig, no. He's just a prat.
He is a bit of a prat, isn't he? I can imagine any of the sort of detectives and police ladies that you mentioned, appearing in an ITV gritty crime drama, you know, getting our heroine and getting her in trouble for killing her husband or whatever. But I can't imagine Craig just popping up in the middle of a scene going, hello.
No, yeah, can you imagine Tinker and Swain? New ITV gritty crime drama. It just doesn't roll off the tongue, does it?
No. Anyway.
It is only a secondment, so maybe he'll be there for a bit and then realise...
Do you think...
A bit over my head here.
Do you think that they've just done it because he's like, you know what? He won't shut up about being in CID If we put him there on secondment, he'll realise how out of depth he is, and he'll shut up about it.
I don't know.
I don't think I can't imagine them being nice to him. Can you?
No, imagine
They
being.
think he was an idiot.
Imagine being paired up with Craig.
Imagine like how much evidence he would lose, or like how he'd flub the case. He'd start off an interview by going, "Oh, hang on, we haven't decided who's the bad cop and a good cop. Hang on, sorry, you weren't supposed
I'd
to hear
love
that."
to see Craig try and be the bad cop. What happened to his mate Jess anyway? She had that really great scene, was it?
Yeah,
She had that.
She was with Amy. Telling her that she believed her.
Was it Amy? It
She
wasn't
believed
Daisy.
her story. No, maybe it was Daisy.
It was some wronged woman
She
on
was
Coronation
great.
Street
I
a
like
couple of
Jess.
months ago.
Maybe Jess
and I
quit.
thought, oh, Jess is going to have a great part in this story, and I don't even remember what the story was.
Maybe Jess quit 'cause she's like, if Craig's getting a secondment over me in CID, I'd quit.
I trained this guy. Yeah. Anyway, so hooray for Craig.
Maybe she's been fired because she did train him.
Wednesday's episode, and Faye is fairly distant over breakfast in the cafe with Craig, and he's trying to talk about this CID job thing. He's like, "Oh, it's my dream to be a detective," and then he sees and then Faye he goes off, and Faye sees that Maria's browsing the latest edition of Chit Chat Mag, which has got party planning tips on the front, and she's like, "Oh, can I borrow that?" So she talks to the girls at work about wanting to put on a party to say, "Well done to Craig, you got a secondment." They do parties for anything, don't they, these days? Little bit. And Izzy's weirdly down over the whole thing. Maybe she realises that this whole thing is a joke.
Izzy's such a sour puss about this. She's like, "Oh, why are you having a party?" Ugh.
Well, it's true.
I know, but you're not invited then.
It's not a proper promotion.
I noticed that she wasn't there.
Yeah, that's true. Faye's looking. She's looking like she's basically putting this party off because she feels so guilty about going out with Jackson.
That is the reason. I know it's just a secondment, but it's something he's always wanted to do.
Yeah.
Do you think everyone's just like, it's too awkward, I don't want to go, I don't want you to throw a party because we all know he's not going to get a job there. It's just embarrassing.
Yeah, there's not going to be a chance to do it for real, so let's just do it for this fake little promotion. So anyway, whatever. Miley and Jackson come around later, and Miley wants Faye's help with some genealogy homework. Do you ever notice that whenever there's some kind of strange family... No. Whenever there's some kind of strange family relationship or strained estrangement or anything like that, a kid always has a family tree homework. I don't know how much of a thing that is. I've never given children homework to go and find out about their family tree.
I did.
Am I the only one that's kind of noticed that this is a bit of a well-used trope on Coronation Street, that a kid needs to find out about their family tree? Am I wrong here?
It's happened before.
But so anyway,
it's not like it never happens though.
No, I guess it's not an unusual homework. It is a thing. It just appears on Coronation Street more regularly than I would expect to see it.
I thought she was saying I wanted help with geometry.
Oh yeah, we couldn't figure out what she was saying at first, did we? But it turns out, yeah, it is family tree stuff. So Faye's like, yeah, fine, whatever. I'll help you with that. I'm lost where we are on my notes. She gets dragged off to help with that. She wants to do the party planning, but she can't. So they go to the cafe, then Gary comes in. And was this like the first time we've seen Gary in about 3 months or something?
It was good to see him again, and I really like him being a big brother to Faye. I think it brings out the best in him.
So do I, but it's another one of these kind of forgotten relationships, isn't it?
Well, that's why they did the family tree, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just to remind everybody that they are... They are related.
Well, Gary, who's a perceptive
but not
type,
really, are they?
Not so much as Craig, obviously, but he notices that there's something funny going on between Faye and Jackson. So back at the flat later, party preparations are back on track again, and Gary says to Faye, "Look, looks like you and Jackson were getting pretty close recently. Just be careful. You're going out with Craig, remember?" So
I know it's forgettable, but
Beth and Faye are at the bistro later organising food for this party. Sally and Tim come in. Sally wants to get involved, and she's getting too over-involved in it and excited by the whole thing. And
I like
Tim
this.
says, "Look, this is getting a bit too much effort just for a secondment." He's right. Craig's lucky to have you, Faye, you know. And Faye's looking a bit mopey because then Tim asks whether Jackson and Miley are coming along, and she says, "Oh, they'll be busy with the move." So Tim is still realising, I don't think Faye's kind of given up on this guy. Craig sees Sally and Tim out in the street later, and he's looking for Faye, and they're saying, yeah, he said, have you seen her? And they're like, oh no, I haven't seen. When did we see her? Ages ago we saw her.
No, we didn't, says Tim.
And Craig believes this, doesn't he? There's this
Well,
very obvious attempt at pulling the wool over his eyes, and Craig completely falls for that.
Know that she was planning the party.
No.
So when they go back to the flat, she still won't tell him where she was.
No, she's very evasive about what's been going on today. So Craig.
And not only does he not notice she's being evasive, but he doesn't realise to ask her why.
I think he didn't kind of notice, but yeah, I think if I was a criminal of Weatherfield, I'd be probably upping my naughtiness game if I knew that he was going to be the one that was going to be coming after me.
I'd be suggesting he gets promoted.
Yeah, maybe this is it. Maybe this is
bruise.
Yeah, all the criminals of Weatherfield are getting together to get all the useless
who's behind this?
Up the ranks.
Who's H?
It's Hay. It's Damon Hay.
We've cracked it, lads.
Right, Friday, sorry. Faye tries to persuade Craig to come round the bistro because, come to let's have a date later, but obviously it's a secret party that she wants him to turn up to. So she, Gary and Maria setting up the bistro. They seem to have booked out the whole thing for this ridiculous party for the whole day.
Rude. Maria was very scathing about Faye's helmet and truncheon bunting that she was trying to make.
Yes, apparently it must have looked a little bit phallic.
What did she think that the helmet looked like? A bell end?
Probably. Well, we were both a bit of
if the cap fit.
Yeah, we were fairly scathing ourselves just about Faye's outfit in today's episode, aren't we? You said that she looked like Eva Brown.
No, I didn't say that.
Definitely said that. Anyway, Jackson comes in to help, and Faye's annoyed that Tim is clearly blabbed to all and sundry about this party taking place. So Gary says to Faye, look, you and Jackson then, eh? You're going to miss him when he goes off to Slough. I've noticed there's been a bit of a mutual attraction between the two of you. And you can't ignore your feelings for him if you've got any. And she says, no, honestly, bro, I've got no feelings for Jackson. He's the one that fancies me. He tried to kiss me one time. And yes, maybe I was briefly confused, but I definitely 100% love Craig. Jackson's ideas are a fantasy. And Gary's like, right, I'm going to have a word with him then, with my fists. So he goes over to Jackson in the pub and says, oi, you, back off Faye, back off my little sister. I know you tried to kiss her at the hotel. And Jackson's like, excuse me, we both kissed each other, actually.
Yeah.
Yes, I do want more with your little sister. And Gary says, well, you need to drop it then, mate, because she's going out with us, soon to be detective. Later on, the party's just getting started. Who should turn up but Toya and Spider? They've crawled out from their rock that they've been under for the past 3 months or so, just so that Toya could make some lines about stuffed artichokes and farting cows. They've been saving up those ones for her. It was nice to see them again. Nice new haircut on Toya.
Yeah.
Had it trimmed
very
somewhat.
Beautiful.
Yes.
It suits her.
Faye gets a text from Gary saying, come and help me out at the shop next door. So she dashes off, telling Beth to make sure that Craig doesn't arrive before she returns. Fail for Beth there.
I totally forgot that he had a shop.
Well, I couldn't remember which shop she was talking about until she arrived.
Are they going? Is he going to Deb's?
It was the furniture shop.
It was the shop that he runs out of Halal.
Yes. So he's found this little music box that he wants to give to ABBA because it plays. Anna Windass.
You said ABBA.
Oh, maybe it plays ABBA songs. It plays something off of Sound of Music, apparently. But anyway, it's just an excuse to have a little reminisce about when she first moved in, when Anna adopted her and everything. And then Jackson turns up, and it all seems like that Gary has arranged this setup so that Jackson and Faye can have another heart-to-heart and get their feelings out and everything, and so on and so forth. Jackson says to Faye, you are making the biggest mistake of your life if you stay with Craig. So Craig, meanwhile, turns up at the bistro and he's like, hang on a minute, there seems to be something going on here. And was that the moment that Spider says, oh, no wonder we're taking you on at CID? I can't remember. So he makes some kind of sarky comment about the fact that...
And there's also a bit where he's working out, it's a surprise party, and he's like, oh, I didn't realise. And Toy's like, well, how are you supposed to know? It's like, well, I don't know, I expected him to have a bit of...
Yeah.
There's something about him, isn't it?
So he's chuffed for the party, but then he notices that Faye's not there and says to Beth, "Oh, I'm a little bit worried about that, Faye. I think that she might be with Jackson again." Tim overhears him and says, "Well, you've clearly got trust issues. There's not right between you two." Then Gary comes in without Faye, which gets Craig even more suspicious. So he pretends that he's going off to the bog or the bar, one of the two, but he sneaks out. Meanwhile, Jackson is telling Faye, "I should be with you." Oh my gosh, it's so dull. Come to Slough with me. You drive me crazy. He takes her hand, and then who should turn up but Faye? What? No, Craig, sorry. He's like going, Faye, where are you? Is that you? Is that your phone I can hear ringing in the furniture shop? Faye says, "Jackson, hide under the desk." But Craig smells a rat. Faye says, "No, look, I came here because I had your present, and Gary said he'd look after it. And he'd hide it here, but now he's not here, and your present's hidden underneath all this junk somewhere, and now I've got to find it." And Craig's like, "Well, that seems perfectly plausible. I completely believe those very obvious lies there."
That's true.
I'm going to go back off to the party then. Yeah. So he goes to the bistro and tells Beth, I'm getting all my names wrong today, about Faye and the present. Meanwhile, Faye's trying to search for the suitable gift because she's now got to come up with something from the furniture shop, which seems like a plausible present. And
I love this. She's like, "This is a load of crap."
basically,
"Hey, Craig, I got you a moth-eaten armchair.
got you a little globe. Or an antique gun. I know that they do a fine trade in those in the bistro.
She could take Sherlock Holmes's gun and he'd probably believe it's a real person.
There's nothing there. It's a whole bunch of tat. So Jackson, who's crawled out from underneath the desk by this point, says it. He takes his watch off and says, "There you go. You can give this to him." So she's like,
"Great.
Cheers very much."
No, I can't. All right, put it in the box.
Thing is, what was Faye going to give to Craig for a present? Or has she just realised that she hasn't
You
given...
don't need to buy somebody a secondment present.
No, that's true, actually. That's true. So they head back, don't they? If Jackson's just saying, stay with me, it would be lovely in Slough. So Beth grabs Craig away from the dinner table.
I can't help but think this would have been an easier choice for Faye if it
wasn't
anywhere but
Slough.
Slough.
If it was come with me to Paris, or...
Yeah, or
just London,
Or like maybe Cornwall, or...
Yeah.
Or East Anglia.
Anywhere but Slough. So Beth grabs Craig away from the dinner table over at the bistro and says, "Look, Craigie, must confess here, I saw Faye and Jackson at the hotel last month. And this was a weird scene. My interest was absolutely waning at this point, but it basically comes down to him saying, "Well, you were there with Marco, you're better than her, blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. I don't know." But basically, she gets a bit of a hard time with it. Faye finally arrives at the bistro, gives Craig... I hope nobody's listening to this podcast for a full and thorough discussion about what happened in Coronation Street this week, because clearly I don't have that. Why would you listen to it for that reason? I'm going to blame being ill this week. I had a cold for a couple of days.
What's my excuse?
You just had your head in your phone, probably. You got nomophobia.
I was doing great tweets.
You did a few good tweets. Anyway, Craig gets given his watch when Faye turns up. He's not particularly grateful for this because by this point he's kind of
on moving to Slough. Love you, Jackson.
He's there down in whiskey. He's getting himself quietly sozzled, isn't he?
It's because he's going to be a detective.
Yeah.
So he's like, "I'm going to drink whiskey at the bar."
He's telling about how gross it is.
God damn! If only I could solve the crimes of this sad town we call Weatherfield.
Does he imagine himself in a bit of a film noir kind of?
"I was at the bar and this dame comes in saying, 'I'm going to Slough.' And I was like, 'I don't care. Tell me when this whiskey's finished, baby.'"
Faye, he says, "Oh, you at hotel with Jackson." Faye says, "Oh, we didn't sleep together though." And Craig says, "Oh, how very 1950s of you. What were you doing on your second date? Put your hand on his knee."
"Now listen here, I've had plenty of broads in here doing worse things than that. But it's not. It's different when it's your dame, see?"
The look on her face clearly says it all to Craig, and he kind of slopes off, defeated, and he goes and has a bit of a sad sad cry on Maxine's bench, which is where Faye finds him later, and she's like,
Yeah, I'm sorry, but if you're having a party to go to work at CID, you can't go and cry on a bench because your girlfriend let somebody else put their hand on her knee.
He's just having a bad time, isn't he?
He's having a bad time.
But it's all right by the end
He's
of the
supposed
episode.
he's supposed to, if he wants to be an ITV detective, he's got to have a gritty background and horrible, tragic past.
And this is it. Is this the?
This isn't really. I can't. Can you imagine
This
the
is
advert?
the pilot episode.
Can you imagine the advert for
For
like the
Tinker and
trailer for
Swain.
this? Tinker and Swain. He thought he had it all. Then his girlfriend moved to Slough. I'm sorry, Craig. Yeah, I'm going to Slough with Jackson and Miley. Oh, God damn it. Get me another whiskey on the rocks.
Oh dear. Anyway, Faye turns up, says, "Oh, I do love you, really, Craigie," and he's like, "Oh, thank goodness for that."
No, he doesn't.
Let's have a hug and a cry.
No, he doesn't. He says, listen here, bitch. I lied for you.
Oh yeah, he does, doesn't he?
My secondment's on the line because of you.
I stuck with you when you were in prison, and I visited you and stuff for all that time.
I lied for you and your friend who ran over that man and his ginger biscuits.
Yeah,
I did
lots of
plumbing.
stuff for you.
I went on YouTube
Remember
and
all
learned
those
how to
stories
fix a
that we
U-bend.
had?
I've got OCD.
Oh, but she says
No,
that.
this was a threat because he's basically saying, I kept quiet about you. I could have gone to prison. I've risked a lot for you. And the insinuation I thought was that he was saying, if you don't stay with me, I'm going to tell everybody.
I don't think he's got, the guts to do that.
Well, I think it makes him a perfect candidate for CID if he's willing to do a bit of blackmailing to get his man.
He wouldn't do it because he does still love her.
Well,
I
she
think
says,
he's just
turned him down. I love you.
He's got no bottle, has he?
I got a bottle of whiskey. Oh, lady.
He's just going. If next episode Faye's like, you know what, I changed my mind, I'm going to go to Slough with Jackson, I can just see Craig going, oh, okay then, have a nice time. he just doesn't have it in him, does he?
Hey, Michael, you know what goes really well with whiskey?
What?
Stuffed artichokes.
So, this was dull.
It wasn't that bad.
Oh, this was boring.
Okay, well, are you done on that one?
I don't have anything to discuss in this story because
I'm really
it was
surprised
really dull.
that they couldn't liven this story up with a little bit of Windass family tree knowledge.
Like what?
Well, like saying anything, like everyone was in prison at least once and your grandma nearly killed somebody and...
Well, Faye did have a pretty violent granddad as well, didn't he? Didn't you, Jeff?
Yeah, there's loads of great stories.
Mm.
If Miley comes out completely normal, she's going to be the weirdest one in the family.
I hope this story ties up soon because it's like...
Is anybody in any doubt that it's going to end with... This is the trouble.
I think
we all know.
Slough may have a new residence next week.
I really think that this story is going to end with Jackson, Miley and Faye in Slough. And so I'm not...
Do you think we're going to have an online spin-off? in Slough.
Miley and Jackson living in Slough. Where do they live? We live in Slough.
No, save me. So I got nothing more to say about this story. It's really, really, really dull.
Okay, fine. I'm
Really
going to do
dull.
Max sentence.
This is the problem. That's what made Friday's episode so boring because there had been some slightly better stuff going on earlier. Like I'm fairly enjoying Max in prison and his prison mate Gav or Gaz or whatever his name is.
Garth.
And we didn't get any of that on Friday. We didn't get any Daisy on Friday.
No,
we just got all Slough all the time.
We didn't get any. We didn't get any Sarah either.
Oh, no, we haven't had any Sarah and Damon this week, have we?
Oh, Damon.
Well, I'm enjoying. Right, go on then.
Oh, I saw you looking at me.
What's been going on with
Oh,
Max and the world's
can't-
greatest teacher?
You can't look over here.
Stop it. Save it for when the storyline comes on.
Everybody likes my Sarah impression.
I know they
tell
do.
me.
I
Right.
know.
Can I just say, with Max's hair, I really want to stroke his head. It looks like lovely, soft, like a mole.
It looks like you could rub it with a balloon and it'd just stick there, wouldn't it?
Well, maybe this is why we're not allowed any more within 10 metres
Right, go on then. What's happened with Maxie?
of the Coronation Street set gates. On Monday, David is with Max in the prison and Max is trying to pretend that it's more fun there. And David's like, I remember when I was locked up, it was crap. And you had to watch these women. Probably. Max
sorry.
twigs that David's been speaking to Daniel, and Max is not very happy that he's found this out, and that he realizes that Daniel was watching this video that he sent him in private in the Rovers with the sound on, and he's like, "Well, I'm not making that mistake again. He's breached my confidence."
Yeah, so Max realises when David doesn't buy his story that prison's all,
Great.
la-di-da, song and dance. He's like, you must have seen my video.
Yeah, so he flounces off, and back at home David tells Daniel about what happened, and they're both really worried. So after class, Daniel keeps Max back and gives him a phone with a message from David, but Max isn't interested, and Daniel says, "Look, do yourself a favour and watch it." So Max watches the video in his cell, and David promises that nobody else has seen his last video. It's been deleted. He says, "You'll be out of jail soon, and you're not a burden. You're my pride and joy." That's really sweet. And he says, "You're right
Quite sweet.
to plead guilty. It's the right thing, and I love you." And Max smiles.
What? That was it?
No. I'm just thinking, because we know that Gav doesn't know why Max is really in there.
No, he thinks that he's in there for car theft.
I wonder whether Gav is going to find a video that gives away why Max is in there. Because Gav and Max are getting more friendly, and Gav's always on at him to give him his phone. Just an idea.
He's going to find out.
He's going to find out. I just wonder how. On Wednesday, Dave's worried about Max and he wants to go and see. I tell you what I would hate, if Gav finds out what Max is in there for, and then he says, "Hey, I know what you're really like. You wouldn't do that again, so I forgive you." Instead of just, putting his head in a door and smashing it.
As I said last week on the podcast, I do quite like
Gav.
I think he's a nice character.
What's he in there for? I've got a personal theory. I'll tell you at the end.
Okay.
So, at the prison.
No. We're back on Wednesday again now.
Yeah, we're on Wednesday.
Yeah.
We right at the beginning.
Yeah.
David's worried about Max, and he wants to go and see him to make sure he hasn't done anything stupid. And at the prison, Daniel asks Max if he's seen the video that David made, and he says, "Yeah, I did." And Daniel says, "We know you're struggling. You've been through some really tough times, and so have I. Don't give up on your family." David goes to visit Max, and he is not happy about his exam, and he thinks he's doing really badly, but he can't talk about it, and he's got a load of guilt about the reason that he's in there. And David says, "I'll keep visiting you. I love you, and I always will, and you'll be out soon, and it'll all be over." And then Max finds Gav in the visiting room, and he's singing down the phone
to his girlfriend.
What is he singing?
I don't remember.
He's singing some musical, something or other. He's singing.
Yeah, serenading her. It's sweet.
Back at home later, David tells Shona that Max is doing fine, and she's glad about that. Meanwhile, back at prison, Gav is still going on about how much he can't wait to see back his girlfriend, and he's like, "Oh, are you looking forward to getting out? Because you were only in here for doing the car stuff, and if you got a girlfriend." And he starts talking a bit about Lauren, and Gav says, "Look, when we get out, I'll help you win her back." That's not lying, is it? It also becomes, this is when it becomes apparent that Gav doesn't have any idea why Max is in there.
Yeah. So I'm enjoying the Max story, and I'm enjoying Gav, but again, this story this week felt like it was just kind of treading water a little bit. There was some sweet stuff with David. I like the relationship between Gav and Max. Ooh, what's going on storyline wise? Not too much. Any thoughts on this one?
My theory about why Gav is in there.
Oh yeah, you did say you had something, didn't you?
On what I said last week about how it's really irresponsible for Daniel and Max to sort of just let this phone go around the prison to whoever's busy mates with Max gets to use it. Because Gav was saying, "I want to use the phone to talk to my girlfriend." And then we saw him today, and he said he picked the song specifically because it's like the longest song he knows.
Oh,
yeah. He
was
leaving a message on a voicemail. And I said last week, "Oh, nobody knows why they're in here. They could have been in prison for like harassing people using phones for all we know." And then this week you see Gav on the phone harassing somebody on a voicemail. I think he's stalking Beck. I don't think they're boyfriend and girlfriend at all. I just think he is obsessed with her, and he loves her and fancies her, and she doesn't fancy him at all, and he's delusional.
Interesting.
In fact, I wonder whether Max is actually his imaginary best friend. They're not really real at all. This whole thing's just been a setup to introduce us to Gav.
Maybe.
That seems unlikely, but I'm not going to give up.
Okay, the Ryan storyline, we're racing through these this week. So Daisy on Monday's episode is going to go and see Ryan again. This was another story that this week it's just kind of the same old stuff again, isn't it? There's lots of Daisy going to visit Ryan and then texting him pretending to be Crystal. That's basically what happened this week as well. But anyway, Daisy's gone there on Monday, and Daniel thinks, I can't. Daniel says that maybe this time, Daisy, you should be telling Ryan about the fact that you're really pretending to be Crystal. But she's like, oh no, I don't really think now would be a good time for that. Thank you very much. So Debbie and Ronnie are with Ryan as well later, and then they get chatting about Crystal, who Ryan apparently hasn't heard from a while because apparently she's very busy. And Debbie's like, oh, I'm surprised she can't even bob you a quick text. That's odd. And then Daisy turns up, and Ryan and Debbie and Ronnie make a hasty exit. So Ryan is not too happy to see Daisy after what happened last week. He's like, I don't need your pity. Yeah, I don't need to force yourself to sit with me. Look, I've got real friends like Crystal. And Daisy looks like she's just about to admit the truth. But he tells her to jog on. So on she jogs, and then that little truth bomb gets put away for another day. Ronnie sees Daisy in the pub later and says, look, seems to be some kind of atmosphere between you and Ryan. Is there anything okay between you? And she's like, yeah, this is what happened. She overheard me slagging him off last week. I didn't mean it. And Ronnie says, right, okay, that makes sense why you're so upset now. After everything that you and Ryan went through this acid attack, that sort of thing makes people have a deep bond. Does it?
Yeah.
If you go through tragic acid attacks together?
It's like what we learned from watching Speed. And then in Speed 2, she's like, yeah, that relationship didn't last because it was basically forged under great duress.
Okay. So Debbie is back with Ryan later. If you want any
life advice, then Sandra Bullock can give it to you.
Debbie's back with Ryan later saying, what's the deal then between you and Daisy? What's going on here? And he says it's very, very complicated. And Debbie says, don't worry, Ryan, you got lots of people in your corner. So Crystal gets another text later, aka Daisy. Daniel reminds Daisy that look, you got yourself into this mess. If you want it over, you just need to pull the plug and make it crystal clear what the deal is. So Daisy's in the back of the pub later. Crystal gets another message. She's kind of composing these texts. She's trying to do the dumping text, or she likes texts like, at the moment I don't think, and I'm not really sure. She just doesn't know how to word it. And as she's kind of there trying to figure it out, he rings her, and she's like, oh my gosh, put the phone down. So she then gets a voice message from him later saying, oh, I'm sorry I came on too strong. I hope we're still mates. And she replies back, yes, of course we're still mates. So they're no further by the end of Monday's episode.
I've got a great idea for if she wants to put him off completely and never talk to her again.
What's that?
Go, Ryan, I think you're really cool. So here's a link to my feminist podcast called Femidom. What's it called?
What the hell? Femposium.
And then he'll just ghost her.
So Wednesday's episode comes along, and we get another return to Weatherfield. And this week it's Carla. She's only been away for a few weeks, though, hasn't she? And she goes to visit Ryan. Feels terrible for leaving him alone after all the mess that he got himself into while she was gallivanting off with Peter. And he says, "Look, fine, Auntie Carla, I'll be all right." So later on, and Carla's seen a text from Crystal pop up while Ryan was napping, and she says, "Oh, what's going on with her then? Do you Does you and Crystal? Yeah, maybe. Is there things going well between you there?" And he says, "Oh yeah, things seem to be going pretty smoothly for us actually, Carla." So Carla goes to the pub later and asks Daisy, who's this Crystal bird that Ryan's so keen on at the moment. He's becoming quite smitten with her. She is a little bit far away though, being an Ibiza. And look, I just don't want anyone to hurt him. And Daisy's like, "Oh, don't worry, Crystal won't hurt Ryan." So later on, Daniel is having dinner with Daisy at the bistro, and meanwhile Ryan is smiling and sighing at Crystal's Instagram pictures and thinking, "Ooh,
what a fit bird!
What a fit bird that is texting me." And that was basically all that happened there. Lots of people have pointed out online that why hasn't Ryan tried contacting
I
Crystal
said
via
this.
her social media. Yeah, you said it as well, didn't
Yeah,
you?
like, hey, I have friends who are on Twitter and Instagram, and I even do it to you. I like, if I'm on Instagram and I see something funny, I send you it on Instagram.
Yeah.
So that's all it would take.
Feels like it's
And
only a
then
matter
she'd
of
be
time
like,
before he does this.
just ignore it. It'll be like, hey, what do you want?
Yeah. It feels like that's what they're setting us up to have to believe is going to happen next.
Say something like, I thought I told Daisy to tell you to leave me alone or something like that, and then he'd be like, but what?
I wonder whether, like, it's either going to be something like that, or maybe she'll post on her Instagram, like, I've just come out of just like, I've come out of hospital, I've just fallen off a cliff or something, and he's like, she's not mentioned that in any of her texts. What's going on?
Maybe it'd be like, R.I.P. Crystal died 2 months ago in that horrible Ibiza nightclub bubble explosion.
Yeah, something like that. It's clearly going to come out, but like I said, it doesn't feel like this story has progressed in the slightest this week.
Holding pattern.
It is just. I'm kind of enjoying it. I'm not hating Daisy like lots of other people are. I totally get that she's got herself into this awkward situation.
We've come too far with Daisy as a collective to give up on her now. She tried to convince Ryan that she raped him once. So this is nothing.
Yeah, I'll just forget about that.
Yeah, we're all pretending that didn't happen.
Oh, can I just give a shout out to Daisy and her Mrs. Doyle from Father Ted impression when she was offering a cup of tea.
Go on.
That was good.
She's
Is there no end to her talents?
There are no end. There's no end to Charlotte Jordan's accents. She can do at least 3.
Right, moving on. This is going to be like the shortest podcast ever, so I've just got nothing to say about this week's Coronation Street. Am I missing some big talking points here this week?
We are.
I don't know. So the Gemma storyline then, and I'll pass to Gemma to talk about it.
I am the expert here.
On all things Gemma.
This week was all about let's be a bitch to Linda because she's rich and we don't like rich people.
We don't like your tight round these parts. We
Bernie's,
prefer getting our wedding money from my poor brother.
Yeah, we like to exploit the working class.
Yeah.
Monday, Bernie's snarky and sarky about Linda parading over to the UK to come and see the wedding. And when Linda arrives, she's really happy just to be invited. And she's like, oh, tell me all about it. And they're like, oh, Raven pies. Pies from local baker's shop. It's all dead lush, that is. And she's like, okay, well, I could pay for it. And they're like, okay. So she orders the food later and she tells everybody, yes, I got so-and-so of Cheshire to do it. And they're like, no, we don't want that. We want pies.
We want Rutland's from the precinct.
Yeah. And so she's like, okay, I'll pay for that then. So what if they want pies? I bet you, the thing is also, I bet you that the fancy caterers in Cheshire do miniature pies. Yeah. I bet they do tiny little pies, tiny little beef Wellingtons.
Yeah, Linda's probably not really gone back to Rutland's. She's probably just asked them to do like fake Rutland's and see if Gemma can tell the difference.
It's kind of like how Anya Hindmarch does those like plastic baggy ones, and you don't know what I'm talking about.
I don't have no idea. I can imagine Gemma being so sloshed at her wedding she wouldn't have a clue where her food's come from.
No, exactly.
And also, I don't even think she ever tastes any of it anyway. It's just like, rah, 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 rah. She's like these birds that swallow a sausage whole,
like
isn't she?
Yeah, like that seagull that regurgitates a hot dog that they ate whole. I'm surprised that also, seeing as what Linda's offering to pay, that she didn't ask for that delicious rhubarb and custard cake that Daisy and Daniel were going to have for their wedding. She tasted all of those and she liked all of them, didn't she?
Very true.
So Dev comes around later with some kebab and Linda's like, oh no, I'm not eating.
Kebab?
Izzy and I are going to the bistro later. See, tell you what, as soon as Linda turns up, Izzy starts getting all these ideas above her station. Going round the bistro, saying party's not good enough for her.
They've still managed to avoid having a scene with Linda and Izzy, haven't they?
Do you
They've
think
talked
the actresses have got like a feud? No, dirt. Yeah, we've got dirt on them too, haven't we? Did you know? Oh, I had a fact. I saw this on the subreddit, the Coronation Street subreddit on Reddit.
Yeah.
And apparently the actress who plays Linda auditioned for the part of Stella Price.
Oh, really?
And they were like, sorry, you are too interesting for this role.
Your Mancunian accent sounds far too genuine.
Can you imagine? So, anyway, Linda tells her that she's going off to the bistro with Linda, and she's rebooked.
Is he?
She's rebooked Rutland's, and she says, that's my good deed for the day. And Vinny's like, oh, not charity case. Oh. Although, you know, it would be a good idea if they did set up a charity.
Yeah.
For 4 kids. On Wednesday, Gemma sends Chesney off to the charity shop because she hears a couple of suits have come in that would be great for the wedding. And later on, Chesney's there, and he looks like an extra member of the Scooby-Doo gang. He's got this brown suit on.
No,
with
he
this
doesn't.
hideous...
Scooby-Doo. They're lovely and bright and colourful.
From the 70s. He's wearing a brown suit with this kind of patterned shirt underneath it. Why does he need a shirt as well? He must have a shirt, a plain shirt. No? Anyway, it's for comedy. He looked awful. But
you said brown by name, brown by nature when he came in wearing that.
Yeah,
there's just a picture of him looking miserable in it. It's like, standard Chesney look.
Chesney to a T.
It was nice that Chesney actually came into it, because I'd been thinking earlier on in the week, like,
who's Gemma getting married to again?
Yeah, he's just not This has been a build up to a wedding where the groom has barely featured, despite being a prominent character in the show for 15 plus years.
Joseph's got this horrible pinstripe number on. He hates it. He thinks it looks stupid. He's not wrong. And Linda says, look, why don't I just pay for you to have some nice suits? And Josie says, no, we can't. Gemma will find out. She wants us to pay for everything ourselves. And Joseph begs. This really wound me up this week. Gemma is such an idiot. Both of them are so stupid. They would rather take food from their children's mouths in order to buy suits from a charity shop that they don't even want.
Yeah.
They're just ridiculous. They're in no position to turn down charity.
And it's from family as well in this case.
Yeah. And like you've pointed out, rightfully so, they're perfectly happy to take it from Paul.
Mm.
It's honestly despicable, really. But they're supposed to be pride. You can't feed your kids with pride, it's stupid. So Joseph's begging for them to get these suits. So when they do, they look great. And Jessie lies and says, yeah, these were the ones. These are the charity shop ones.
Oh, yeah, he cuts a button off one, doesn't he, to try and make it.
So they're like, oh, sometimes you just lose a button and they just put it in charity shop. And Gemma's like, see, I told you, it'd be great. You're brilliant. Later on, Linda's saying, look, why don't you just let me pay for the flowers and the cake? And he says, no, we can't accept that. And she says, well, how about I loan you the money? And what about this Chesburger thing you were talking about? You wanted to open a restaurant, didn't you? Why don't you just pay me back when that takes off? What? Oh, that's going to fail. And he's like, yeah, great idea. Idiot.
Do you think that we ever will see this Chesburger restaurant?
Can you imagine a picture of Chesney in the local paper with his sad little grin trying to sell you a burger?
I mean, no, but I think that I'm ready for a change. Like, prima donna has been prima donna for a very long time now. Maybe it is time that Chesney took a step up and took over it himself and rebranded.
I'm not going to criticise Coronation Street for being too static, because they do have speed dial, which is a new kind of idea that they hadn't had before, and it does fit in with, the way that the food scene is going. But to have replace the kebab shop with a burger place, that seems very much on trend with.
It's a little change.
It'd be really interesting if they opened a ghost kitchen, because that's very realistic these days, isn't it? Where you have a bunch of brands running out of a kitchen that's not really a restaurant.
Lots of different things. That's what the factory should be.
Well, the factory should be anything but a knicker factory, but then nobody asks that, do they?
What's been going on there this week?
No, nothing. Why didn't they let Stephen go on holiday? Because he wasn't going to even be in it for 2 weeks anyway. On Friday, Paul lies to Ed, because Ed's like, when are you coming back to work? I miss you. We used to have great conversations about...
football.
Beer.
Unicorn onesies.
And when are you getting the all clear? And he's like, well... I don't know.
Ed's like, this storyline's been dragging on for ages. And Paul's like, but yeah, you got no idea, Ed. You have no idea.
Ed tells Dee Dee later he's worried about Paul because there's something fishy going on and he seems a bit off. So Dee Dee sits down with Paul in the pub and says, people are starting to notice and it feels like you're pushing people away. And he says, well, I have to get used to life without me anyway. And he sort of mopes off. And then he mopes off to Victoria Gardens and Dee Dee finds him there.
There was moping this week, wasn't it? Craig's moping, Paul's moping, Chesney's moping, Max is moping, Daisy's moping.
All the men are moping and all the women are starting feminist podcasts. So he's in Victoria Gardens and Dee Dee finds him and says, make the most of life while you can. You're not dead yet. You still got conditions. You're still in good condition and you're free. Let me tell everybody in your court case about your condition and we can get you. You might not even have to go to prison. I would be embracing life if I was you. I wouldn't be sitting in Victoria Gardens because it's crap.
And rainy.
Paul goes to see Gemma and he's like, look, let me help you more. I want to take Joseph to Little Big Shots.
At the beginning of the episode, he kind of...
not helpful.
Yeah, Gemma was like, can you take Joseph off to Little Big Shots? He's like, no.
No,
At the end of the episode,
I'll be dead
it's like,
soon.
oh, yes, I can. He's had his Ebenezer Scrooge moment of revelation and now he has become charitable again.
Yeah.
And he's been reminded that before this all started, he was being a terrible do-gooder and now he's back on it again.
Yeah. And also Gemma's like, thank you, Paul. I wouldn't be able to live without you. If you died, I'd be sad. and Paul says, why are you bringing that up? Paul goes to Ed and says, I can't come back to work. Don't bother about keeping it open. I won't be back anytime soon. And Ed's like, oh, I'll always keep your job open for you, Paul. You didn't do anything anyway.
And that was that as well.
Do you remember when Paul first started working for Ed and he had to Google how to fix a door?
Yeah.
If
And
that's
now
his level.
I can't live without him. So anyway, yeah, nothing new there with the Paul storyline. It felt like
Bernie is just such a snob to Linda because she's got money. If this story doesn't end with Bernie realising that she's just been an arsehole to Linda because of how much money she's got, then I'm going to be annoyed because Bernie seems to think that the amount of money you've got is directly in reverse to how much of a good person you are.
Yeah, I think it feels like we're supposed to be championing Bernie's
but she
position
feels
there,
like
doesn't it?
She's got this weird Victorian morality about like suffering brings you closer to God or something, where she don't even believe in God, she just believes in crystals. So what's going on there?
I'm enjoying the antagonism between them. It's kind of fun.
She's just
it's
jealous.
going to last for a couple of weeks until the wedding, and
she's just jealous, and it's really unbecoming. She's old enough to know better, isn't she?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this wedding. I have to say,
I want to see what Bernie's going to wear. I want to see what Linda's going to. I bet she's going to be glamorous.
We do know what Gemma's going to wear. We have seen pictures of it.
We won't say anything else.
Look out for it.
I think good. That's not a spoiler, is it? That's it, isn't it? Should we do the next one?
Yeah, let's move on to Eliza's birthday party, which is, it's party central on Coronation Street today, wasn't it? You had the kids' party, you had Craig's party.
I can't understand
and this one was even more of a washout.
Why Craig didn't, team up with Eliza to both go in the limo together?
Good point.
I bet you Craig would have bloody loved going around the block with a bunch of kids in a limo.
Yeah.
It's about his mental level, isn't it? Be like, guys, did you see it in the Midnight Garden? They'd be like, no. Don't watch that, it's too young for us.
So it's Eliza's last day at her old school today and her birthday at the same time. She's going to be moving to Weathy High next week. And
this is a good move. This is a very canny move. Don't go to the new school when it's your birthday because no one knows. Milk all the old people for presents.
Yeah.
And then you've got a year to ingratiate yourself to the other Weathy High people to get presents for next time.
So if you remember back like 3 weeks, I'm going to say, when the storyline last featured, and Hope was planning to sabotage Eliza's 12th birthday party somehow, I was looking forward to it being, a little bit more conniving than this. But all it turned out to be was Hope told people the wrong day for the party because... Eliza's getting worried in the morning about meeting her new school friends, but then when the limo turns up, there's nobody there. And even Hope has been able to dissuade Jake and Liam, who are here for their bi-monthly appearance, from coming to the party. So it really is low numbers. It's like Sam, who is it? Sam, Hope. Eliza, Hope, and maybe 2 other non-speaking extras that turned up, so that was a complete washout. And they decided...
I'd quite like some non-speaking extras to come to my party.
Oh, I wouldn't mind Dirk
As long
coming
as
along.
as long as they laugh at my jokes.
No, they'd just have your silent laughter. Yeah.
That was me
Gemma
doing
was
silent
just doing silent
laughter.
laughing there. Anyway, Hope says, oh, sorry, I must have forgotten and given him the wrong day. How silly of me.
Dirt.
And Sam's like, don't worry, everybody, let's just have the party next episode. And Yasmin says, yes, wonderful, we could have something at Speed Dial. Is Speed Dial really the place for a 12-year-old birthday party?
Yes, it's got mango lassies. Everyone's nuts for them.
And Roy's like, I'll help as well. So, yeah, I felt that, I don't know, I felt like Hope's revenge was a bit tame.
Yeah, I
not
wanted...
revenge, because this was
done anything wrong.
Well, this is the kind of love triangle, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is the Sam, Eliza, Hope stuff, which was, I thought, really quite interesting to watch, but it just turned into nothing this week. And that steam with Stu and Jake and Liam there just smacked of, let's get these actors in for a scene, or let's get these kids in, and people across the country are going, who are they again?
I didn't know who.
No, which one didn't you recognise? Jake with the floppy hair.
Yeah, I didn't recognise him at all.
No, he's and like Hope said to them, "Oh, what was her reason for them not wanting the party? Like it's
Boring.
not going to be cool. It's going to be babyish. Like Jake,
yeah.
he's only about 9. He's 3 years younger than Eliza
yeah,
anyway.
she said,
Why would she even want a little baby like that in her eyes to come along to a party?
Well, no, she didn't want them to come because she wanted to make her feel isolated.
Yeah.
Well, she was saying, "Oh, you mean why would Eliza?"
Yeah, why would Eliza want Jake
she
to
wants
come
to make
to her
friends
birthday
with people
party?
in the community.
But Jake doesn't even go to Weddy High. He's still in primary school.
Well.
Oh, well.
It was Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and she said it would be a little kids' film.
Oh, yeah.
Now, there's a really funny... I don't know if people watch Nathan For You, but there's a really funny scene that this reminded me of, where he's got a bunch of kids. He's trying to invent a child's toy, and he's doing like a focus group. And he made this toy, and the kids don't like it. And he says, "Oh, what if I told you that if you didn't have this toy that you're a big baby?" And they're all like, "Well, I have to have it then." It's funny when he did it.
Well, I mean, hopefully this will be fun on Monday. It just felt like this whole series of events wasn't needed, especially if they're going to have another party anyway.
That's what
Why
I was
not just
thinking.
have the second party?
Yeah,
it feels like filler. Maybe Coronation Street were like, you know what, maybe we can make the whole episode about Craig and Faye. And they're like, no, for heaven's sake, no, let's just throw some of this Eliza stuff in there just to fill up a bit of time. We can't possibly do that. So nothing happened there. And then we have our Brian storyline, speaking about filler and setting things up for next week. So, Gemma?
Brian is excited because Isabella's coming, his long-lost Italian cousin. And Mary's like, she's going to be a serial killer. And everyone knows they don't have serial killers in Italy. It's ridiculous.
It was kind of funny when when all these people were coming out of the tram station and Mary was telling him whether they look like killer or not. Driller killer.
It's to do with the distance between your nostrils.
Yeah, if the distance
eyes.
between the outer edges of your 2 nostrils doesn't match your eyes, then you're a killer, apparently. So everybody check that out, let us know. How are you looking? Yeah, definitely killer, as I suspected.
So, Brian and Mary are waiting for her outside the tram station, and she turns up. Predictable, they hug, predictable, they go to the pub. Isabella thinks that Brian and Mary are going out with each other, and everyone's like, ha ha ha, you idiot. Stupid Italians.
Well, Mary's like, oh no, me, Brian, romance between us, no, she's like she does protest too much.
So it turns out Isabella also likes making model ships. And Brian can't believe how much they have in common, and Mary's like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, so Mary is suspicious of Isabella, who I imagine is going to be perfectly innocent, but Mary's going to go off on one of her silly rants and probably offend her, and
I was hoping
turn out all right
Isabella be one of these outrageous characters, a bit like Mimi.
Well, she does seem fairly normal. She's definitely, loud and Italian, isn't she?
Well, yeah, it goes without saying.
I mean, she's a lot more Italian than Bethany was when she turned up after.
I wanted her to
5 years
sort
in Milan.
of come in and be like, oh, what is this? A little place you drink English. They drink the warm beer is horrible, and all that kind of stuff.
She only got about 5 lines
Yeah.
through the whole episode, so I don't know whether I think it feels a bit too early to make first impressions on Isabella. She seemed
Well, she didn't. I
fine.
didn't go wow. So
She's not one of these characters like I never want you to leave.
yeah.
But she has been brought in for what is really a bit of a silly storyline. This is an utter filler. Brian's Italian cousin. What?
Do you think they make model? Do you think they really have model ships in Italy? It feels to me like it's the sort of hobby that we have in Great Britain because the weather's not good.
Can't go outside to the beach today.
No. She's like, we do not make these tiny ships, as you say, in England. We drink the wine and we make a pasta and love on the beach. We do not have time for your silly little games.
Well, yeah, mate. Is there anything suspicious about her?
No.
Is she lying about making ships?
She lied about being Italian.
Could be.
At the end of the story, she could be like, "Do you know what, love? Just get yourself a tin of Dolmio and I'll be fine."
And that is literally it for this week's Coronation Street. We've reached the end.
Penny pasta.
Oh yeah, penny pasta. We've reached the end, and literally that was possibly our shortest street talk ever.
We weren't even trying.
Nothing really happens this week.
It wasn't bad.
You gave Wednesday's episode a banging, and it wasn't bad. I would say that there was some, even my bog standards this week were fairly high bog standards, but
today was just a bit like
today sucked all the joy out of it, and the other things that were good were just good in spite of themselves. That it didn't feel like there was much plot development. Daisy's still being Crystal, Faye is still undecided about Jackson. Max is still not really enjoying prison. Ryan's face is still melted off.
Do you think the whole
Amy's still, at loggerheads with Aaron.
The moral of the story
but now it's going to court.
You have to learn to love prison before you can be let out.
Yeah. So I've nothing to add about it. It wasn't terrible. It just wasn't terribly interesting. So I'm going to give this week's episodes 2.5 whiffs of Poe out of 5 this week.
Poe.
Oh yeah, Gemma, we did. I know that I was going to mention at the beginning of the podcast your Eurovision predictions last week on last week. Shut up! I can't talk at the same time as you poeing away there. You predicted last week on the podcast that we would get in the top half of the votes table on Eurovision. We actually came second from bottom.
We were wrong.
But your prediction for the winner was right at least, so congrats there.
I didn't like it.
2.5 out of 5 for me.
I wanted cha.
What do you? What
I wanted that one to win.
What did you rate this week's Coronation Street?
Well, can I just say our performance was poor on the night.
I had
song
fallen
performance
asleep by the
wasn't
time
great.
our song
The song
came on.
itself was brilliant. I think she's a great. I think that something went wrong.
What's your score?
3.
3.
I know I
what?
keep giving everything 3.
Do you?
3. Well, maybe I do. Maybe I don't. 3 talcum powdered rats.
Oh yeah, that was weird. With Craig talking about that's another one of these things that Corey puts into the script where people say that they did things and it's like, no, you didn't do that. He said he washed Daryl twice a week and talcum powdered him and everything. Do not believe that. Silly. Character of the week.
Isabella.
No, it is not Isabella. So there's nobody
Linda.
that particularly stands out to me.
Linda's the only person with her head screwed on in the whole show.
Why?
Hello, everybody. Can I help you?
I'm rich. Would you like some money?
You really want to eat sausage roll for your wedding? All right, I'll buy it for you.
I'm going to give my character of the week to Amy because she stuck to her guns and she posted that post and she's refusing to write that letter of saying, no, sorry, I shouldn't have done that because he did rape her after all.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. I don't know what it would cost me. It is an interesting... The thing is, it doesn't feel... This is the thing, that it doesn't feel like a dilemma. It really should... You really should be sitting there thinking, God, if I was Amy, what would I do? Is Amy going to lose anything here? No, she's not. She hasn't got anything on the line. It would be more interesting if Amy was, living in the flat by herself and she was looking at her bills and she didn't have any money and she was thinking, I've got Nana Blanche's money. That's my future. Am I gonna bet my future on whether someone believes me when the people that live around me don't believe me? There's been none of that. It just feels like it's been swept up in, like I've said this before, about everything else that's going on at the moment. There's a really interesting dilemma and unique story that gets turned into something boring and bog standard. A bog standard soapy kind of, like, this isn't really that bog standard though, but...
It's better than that.
It's not as good as the raw nugget that we started with.
No.
Instead, it's turned into a proxy war of rich parents, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And is that really what we wanted out of this story? Could we have that? Could we have that storyline for another reason? Like, you're wasting 2 stories on one, really. I want to sit there and think really honestly. If I was Amy and I had to write a letter, it would be even nice to watch her trying to write this letter to herself. Like, if I was to write this letter to Aaron and to have her typing it out and then watch her turn it into actually no, just another accusation, because she can't bring herself to lie.
I'm the sort of person that will avoid any kind of conflict at all costs, so I think possibly I would just write that letter. It made them feel really guilty and shamefaced about myself.
I don't know if I could live with having people think that I had lied about something like that.
The thing is, she's already said that. She's already gone back on herself, and now to do it a second time,
it would be the nail in the coffin for people believing that happened to her.
Well, we'll find out what happens to that next time.